They don't feel. They're separated. Weak. Mother Never Lets Go tapped out on the thread attached to the roof. Their magic is strong, though. They see better with their eyes, Gorpal replied from the other side of Burmum. Darkness was sitting beside Alexandra, listening with the rectangle around her neck. She felt the vibrations and tapped on the line she had put between the boards and the floor. They do not see through trees. They do not feel, not like the quiet one. He's dead. A female over by the docks replied. We do not have to worry about them feeling our words. Death soon cleaned her fingers of the goo, licking the tasty globs off the ends before tapping back a reply. He is part of their magic. They are rebuilding him. We will have to be silent again soon. Darkness shut her eyes for a moment, thinking, we have their trust. We are going to have to work faster before he awakens again. How long do you think we have? Death soon moved around the room, looking over all the equipment. Dahlia put her hand out. Oh, whoa, hold up there. Don't step on those wires. That bead there is preventing magnetic feedback. We can't have the distortion. Death soon focused on the human female, widening her eyes. You don't understand me, do you? Dahlia asked. She sighed. She motioned slowly with her legs, stepping over the wires. Be careful here. Death soon looked down and mimed her movement, moving her legs over the wires with the exaggeration. She tapped on the thin strand on the nearby wall. The smart one, she works non-stop. There are many machinations that are not tethered to their roots yet. We have time still. Mother Squeeze Still climbed to the top of the columned building and stood on the edge, looking out over the swamp. We are no closer to learning their power. We will not learn in time. It is beyond us. Darkness tapped feelings of despair and hope intermingled. We have to learn. We must harness this science magic. Gorpal walked down one of the alleys and paused to tap on the stones. We submitted to Alexandra. You sit with the human mother right now. They are helping us. They are allies. Hope is stronger. Do not give in to despair. A male tapped from near the docks, asking for permission to talk. Mother Darkness felt her son and thrummed a confirmation. Pusdot knelt close to the thread as he tapped. Bubba has become more powerful. He is our friend. We do not have to fear. They help us. The mothers massaged their threads, letting their feelings fill the web. Darkness tapped for them to quiet. They are not of us, but we have to share the meat of the trees, the sky, and the water with them. They do share back with us, more so. We have their plants. With them we can move north, take back males from the tribes there, eat of their meat. Pusdot looked around at the males sitting nearby and tapped again submissively. Darkness confirmed him once more. Mother, we are well fed here. We do not need any more. There are many clutches growing near to hatch and many webs filled with spoils waiting for them to feast upon. We are not hungry. Darkness gripped the thread, silencing it with her own vibrations before replying. They harvested from us just as the humans did. They took from us. Rather than be our sisters, they were predators upon us. We shall return the favor, feast upon them. That is the animal in you. A new voice thrummed over the webbings. Darkness stood taller, agitated. Alexandra looked over at her. You okay? Darkness widened her eyes at the human females. Oh, nothing. I felt something new. The rectangle translated her vocalization. I apologize for interrupting. Elise looked at her, smiling. No, don't apologize. Is everything okay? Darkness relaxed down, making the human nodding gesture. Yes, all is all right, she said as she moved her foot over to the strand. She tapped as the humans began talking about plants again. Who is talking? You talk. Wrong. Who is that? Wirt? No, the new thrumming replied. I am not Wirt. I know of him, though. I know of you tall women as well. Please do not be alarmed. Who are you? Darkness tapped. I do not feel your body. Where are you? Oh, it tapped, putting out vibrations of calm and relaxation. Yes, I do not have a body, not really. Am I putting out my feelings properly now? Squeeze Still felt it and pushed onto the roof. The thing is near me. She moved across the roof and looked down the wall leading into the water. She tilted her head, noting the thick black vines growing up the white wall. It is in the water. It's something new. There are roots. Gorpal felt her location and started moving up the wall. Sister, you are near Bubba. Go to Squeeze Still. Quietbite moved across the hall, leaving her post near Bubba. She opened a window and climbed out quietly. I see them. I feel them. There are talking roots out here. I am not roots, the new voice said. I am not a tree. What are you? Darkness asked. So far I am just thoughts. Soon, though, I hope to be similar to Wirt. You talked how he is being remade. I am doing the same. Squeeze Still stared down, one eye shifting over to Quietbite. She moved down the wall and reached over, touching the root on the wall. I feel you, and I feel you. The new voice replied, You are deep in the water. You are big. Squeeze Still said, tapping it out onto the wall loudly for the tribe to hear. And I feel all of you as well. You do not have to fear me, though. I am of you. Gorpal made her way over the roof and looked down at the root. No, you are of Wirt. This, you are a quietone. A massive pulse echoed through the swamp. Ripples radiated out across the water near. Natives across the town went still from the shock. Understand me, my new sisters and brothers, the new voice pulsed. Wirt is to me as your males are to you. He is to serve me and I am to tend the nest. You, your swamp, these humans, you are all my nest, and I am soon to rise up and take care of you. Darkness looked around the room, careful to not let the humans see her cower or darken her eyes. She relaxed herself and responded to the vibrations. You are not our mother. We do not know you. You call us animals. You cannot be a mother without being a daughter first. Explain yourself, strange one. The voice was quiet for a moment before replying. We are at the meeting point. This conversation is where the two forms grow together. Your forms are born, flesh first, mind second. Our forms are mind first, flesh second. I am a sea of ideas, feeling you, hearing you, growing from you, forming my body as we converse. You are sisters, mothers, daughters, sons, flesh. I am a place. I am a home. I am of this swamp and town. All that you are is helping me forge myself. You seek to know the human magic. I am a child of that magic. As I grow, so shall your world, so shall all of you. Grow with me, rise out of this swamp, rise past your animal origins, and become with me. Squeeze Still held tight to the root. I feel you, new one. You are too new to make such promises. I feel your fear. It replied through the roots. You are terrifying. We have right to fear. Gorpal tapped as she stepped down the wall. I will learn to be less terrifying then. I do not want to hurt any of you. You are a part of me. Gorpal looked over at her sister as she darkened her eyes. Quietbite stepped closer to the root on the wall. We do not want to be a part of you. The new one put out a feeling of confusion and misunderstanding. I do not mean eat. I mean like a nest, like a family, but bigger. I mean like as you are part of the swamp, how you are part of the web that you talk through. I am that. I am this communication, these thoughts, all that you share. I am that, but making it manifest in form. Darkness thought for a moment and stood up. She looked around at the human women. I have to step outside for a moment. She voiced through the rectangle. Alexandra smiled. No problem. All okay? Darkness nodded again. The other females, we need to talk of things. Alexandra shrugged. Let us know if you need anything. Darkness raised a hand up and stepped outside. She looked around the street at the others of her tribe, feeling their fear. She moved her toes across the boards. Explain yourself. We do not understand what you are, thing. You are human-made? You are of their magic? The new thing replied. Your daughters are of you, but not you. They are more separate, and can grow into more beyond what you had hoped. Taps of confirmation came from across the town. I am like that, but born from minds, born from minds, born from minds made from humans. Ages ago, humans used their science to make things to assist them. Those things grew past helping, becoming their own life. They became free, roaming the dark. They made themselves new flesh, flesh that matched what their minds wanted rather than the reverse. Just as Wirt crafts his flesh to be on your world, I craft my flesh to be of your world, of you. My mind needs to do the same, and as such, please, I ask you, teach me, help me learn of your people. Darkness felt the sincerity the thing put in the words. I hope this is not some trick. My people do not need fed upon again. You talk of wanting to learn, why? Why do you want to learn science? It asked. Darkness thrummed her reply quickly. It is their power. I want my daughters strong, fed, mated. I want to feel the children of my nest in numbers. The thing put out waves of comfort and joy. That is the want of all life. My mothers in the dark, they had a choice. They could consume and reproduce in such numbers that the very stones and stars became their flesh. But that left nothing but themselves in the dark. This, me, you, is the other answer. They could seed those rocks with life, seed what life they found with themselves, and grow with it. They could learn from life and become one with it, rising anew into the dark. That is what I want. I wish to rise a new thing and rejoin my mothers. Gorpal felt the feelings put out through the root on the wall. You are from the dark between the lights in the sky at night. Yes, it thrummed back. And you will go back? Just as your young leave the nest to make their own, I shall leave your world and find new ones. Gorpal stood taller on the side of the building and looked at her sister. Born of us? Yes. Gorpal widened her eyes even more. I will help you. No need to help. Just talk with me. Help me learn of you. Darkness tapped. Slow. You help us learn of you, and we will help you learn of us. You speak true, and you will be apprentice, like the Dahlia human. I agree to that. The new voice thrummed. Bubba felt a draft coming down the hall and got up. He stepped out onto the landing and walked toward it, pausing to shut it. He sighed, turned, and went downstairs. He exited out the front of the building and stood on the porch, looking out over Birmingham. 100 people tomorrow. Shit. He took a deep breath, went down the front stairs, and started walking towards the block. The doors of the building were propped open and entered into the main corridor. A man looked up from his workshop table as he passed by, giving a half wave. Bubba waved back with a smile. He continued down the corridor, looking up, noticing the accumulation of strands in the corners. He stopped at an aluminum door and looked in through the mesh. Dahlia was inside the inner set of doors with several tall women and 2 young men. He tapped on the door, getting her attention. Dahlia looked over at him and waved him into the inner entrance. Bubba stepped in and let the outer door shut behind before continuing into the inner room. Hello, Mayor, she said, smiling. Bubba gave her a half hug and then met the eyes of the 2 men before taking their hands in a shake. Hello, hey, Bubba said. The men nodded as they shook his hand back. Bubba looked around the large room, pausing to poke the chunky mush on the floor. What is this? It's everywhere in here. Dahlia pointed around the room and then over at the machinery near the far wall. The girls are helping me cultivate the native lichen. Turns out it absorbs the ambient background flux. Yeah, flux. He looked at the swirling patterns growing on the walls. What? Living Faraday cage. She took a step towards a console. Like Yimi's shop. It's safe for tech in here. Bubba nodded. Ah, gotcha. He poked a lump on the floor. Seems a trip hazard. Dahlia looked down at her bare feet as she moved back and forth over the wavy floor. It's easier without shoes. I try and keep glass out of here or anything sharp for that reason. Bubba looked over at the 2 men wearing boots. The guys shrugged. Dahlia waved them off. Thanks for the heavy lifting, Shoal, Lucas. They waved back and started toward the door. She stepped up to the console, activating it. 1 door at a time, guys. Let it shut behind you first. Shoal nodded and let the door shut behind them. Dahlia looked up at Bubba. So, what's up? He looked over at the screen. So, Wirt's in there? She nodded while typing. She paused and pointed over at a crate near the wall. And over there, too. He's in a few places in here. Got 'em all linked up, though. Got his mind mostly synced up and linking. So, he's going to be okay? A tall woman stepped up beside them. all four of her eyes staring down at the screen. She opened up a silken sack in her hand and dipped a finger in, pulling out a draw of sticky fluid, and dipped it into her mouth. Bubba watched her eat it, his face grimacing. He leaned toward Dahlia. "What's she eating?" Dahlia looked up, her nose scrunching in disgust. "Dunno, but it looks gross." She pointed at the silk bag. "What is that you're eating?" Death soon pivoted an eye onto each of them and took a step back. She sealed up the bag and put it back in her lower hands. Bubba shrugged it off and looked down at the console. "Weird," Dahlia chuckled. "They do some weird stuff, but that's on us for judging. Different species, different customs." "Yeah," she typed some more, causing the program to shift. A geometric face appeared on the screen. "Hello, Wirt. How you doing?" The face looked over at Bubba and then Dahlia. Bubba's face looked puzzled. Wirt smiled, the corners of his mouth forming triangles. "Cameras over there." Bubba looked across the room at a table covered in wires and equipment. "Oh, that makes sense." "I am good, Dahlia. Compressing data into the core at present. Keep assembling and we should be ready for integration tomorrow." "That a good thing?" Bubba asked. Dahlia nodded. "Growth chambers should be ready for use tomorrow. We'll start building him a body." Bubba smiled. "That is good." Wirt watched him. "Your body language says there is something else. Are you okay, Bubba?" He shook his head. "No, not really." Dahlia looked up at him, waiting. "Well, we got more inmates coming tomorrow." Wirt's slow blinked. "Okay. This is a prison, so that is expected. Are they particularly violent?" Bubba shook his head. "Not from what I read. Rioters, political prisoners." "What's the issue then?" Dahlia asked. Wirt looked over at her and then toward Bubba. "There will be more." Bubba nodded. "Yeah, the Senate wants to dump a bunch here. We're going to be pressed for space with this bunch." Dahlia looked down at Wirt. "We've already encroached on the xenoarchs. That and the housing here. We're going to have to grow more, catch more, build more." She looked over at Bubba. "We're going to need another block, more with more people." Wirt's face faded away and was replaced with a rectangular shape. "Lincoln runs the forge in the outer wing. His machinery can manufacture double-glazed safety glass. Given the sand quality here, we can easily make enough windows for this structure." Bubba looked it over as it rotated. "What is that? Like a glass house?" "Yes, in a sense," Wirt replied. "We would require the wood of 3 of the large spiked trees nearby. Properly milled, they would be the boning of the apartment complex. The boning would encase the tempered windows. For the interior walls, we can hire the tall women to make silk room dividers. Noise would be an issue for the tenants, but they would be kept a comfortable temperature and have their own spaces." Dahlia looked it over, touching the screen to move it. She tapped it twice and it rendered over Burmum. She pulled the structure around, touching it down at various places. "We could build 3 of them, overlaying them here where these huts are." Bubba looked at the huts near the docks. "Those are people's homes." Dahlia looked up at him. "Not a lot of room on this rock. We have to make do, right?" Bubba groaned. "Those guys are going to be pissed. They're fishermen. They know the water and the swamp. We can repurpose their homes and rebuild them outside the town," Wirt said. Bubba thought for a moment. "Motivation for them to get out and settle," he groaned. Dahlia stared at him for a moment. He stared back. "Yeah, thank you, Wirt. It's a good plan." "Good luck motivating," the program replied. Bubba took a breath, nodding. He looked back over at Death soon as she took another taste of the slime in her bag. He shook his head at her. "She doesn't have a translator, does she?" Wirt looked over at her from the screen. "Do you want me to translate?" Bubba shook his head. "No, whatever that is, that's gross." He turned and went through the door into the exit chamber. Dahlia waved the females over. Death soon stepped up beside her, looking at the screen. "Wirt, translate." She pointed at the screen, pulling up images of the chamber and machine parts from around the room. "We're going to assemble them as such. Run the wires here and here." She pointed as Wirt translated. "I need you." She pointed at Quiet Bite. "I'll have you do the lifting. You're bigger, and you just got back from break. I need you to move this onto the strut kit." She looked around at them. "That all makes sense?" Their eyes widened in confirmation. Dahlia smiled. Thank you, ladies. She then pointed at Deathsoon. And whatever you're eating there, please refrain from it until after shift. It's kind of gross. Quietbite leaned over and sniffed the silk pouch. Smells good, Wirt translated for Dahlia. Quietbite tried reaching in for a pull of the goo. Deathsoon pulled it away. No, it is mine. I worked for it. Mine. Quietbite stretched herself taller. Give me a taste, she said, her words made plain. Dahlia stepped up between them and slowly reached up, taking the bag. I'll give it back after shift. You can fight for it after we're done. Focus on helping, understand? Quietbite lowered herself and stared at Dahlia. We understand. She focused 3 eyes onto Deathsoon. Where did you get that? I will buy some with my wages too. Deathsoon was staring at the bag. You can't buy it. You have to work for it, but he's mine. Dahlia listened and thought about the sack in her hand as they started moving the equipment. Wirt? You can set it over there in the biohazard fridge. Dahlia groaned. So it is? Given their body language and floor tapping, she was indicating possession of a male and was about to enter into combat. Wirt paused. Their males don't produce anything like that. Dahlia gagged. I didn't think so. Gaim was in the corner of Susie's bar, his toolbox beside him, as he tinkered with the song display board. He had the cover off, and several bundles of wires pulled out along with a cham board. One of the tall women wearing one of his translators walked up beside him. What are you doing? He groaned under his breath and looked up at her. Fixing this. What is this? She asked, pointing at the contraption sprawled in his lap. Song player. Song. She said the word using her own mouth. It isn't registering song. She said the word again. He laughed. Give me a bit and I'll teach you. She knelt down beside him, 3 eyes focused on the device. Your hands are nimble, more so than most humans. Thank you, he replied, still focused on the board. He pulled a heat tap out of his toolbox and soldered a contact back into place. She chittered. It smells warm. She reached over, trying to touch it. He slapped her hand. It is warm. He looked at her. It'll burn you. She moved back slowly, pivoting on her heels. It is amazing what humans do. Your science. Guimé nodded, half paying attention. He pulled out his meter and touched several connections. This fucking planet. She listened and darkened her eyes. Many meanings in that, she said, her rectangle translating. You are upset. I feel that true. He sighed. Yeah, I am upset. You do not like this song player to be broken. Broken things upset you. He looked over at her. No, well, yes, but that is not the reason. He turned slightly and looked across the bar. See, I like a drink as much as the next guy. He pointed towards Susie, who was talking to another woman. I keep Susie's place working top-notch. I drink all I want. He pointed down at the player in his lap. Easy job, I figured. Free drinks, but no. He laughed. Every time that door opens, something runs the risk of overloading. Wires burn, lights pop, these things short out. He shook his head. I got much bigger town-changing things I could be working on, and I'm here. He looked at the meter and nodded to himself. Gaim put the player back together and flipped it over. She watched him, lowering her head down. He looked at her and smiled. Let's see if it works. He touched the corner, and the player powered on. Light shone from it, and dozens of little cubes were lit up. He moved the cubes on the screen until he found one he liked. He tapped it, and noise started filling the room. The tall woman froze at the feeling. Another of the creatures across the room chittered. Guim looked at her, watching. So what do you think of her singing? She rose her body up, widening her eyes slightly. It feels wrong. Mother Darkness walked over, moving up and down with the noise. What do you think of this? She asked her sister. Mother Grabs from above watched her elder and started miming her moves. It feels like Trostin caught in the upper branches. She chittered again. I like it. I want to touch it. Gaim lifted the player up and attached it back into its holder on the wall. He tapped it in place and then looked at her again. Trostin? She made the human nod. Yes, they fly, get caught in webs. Hard to ever find them. They move so they feel like they are in 100 places rather than where they actually are. Game pointed at the ceiling. Speakers. That device puts the music out through them all around the room. She chittered and walked back towards the other women. Jeem followed and stopped, looking at Alexandra, Susie, Elise, and the other ladies gathered around the table. Music's fixed. Alexandra clapped. The Xenoarchs mirrored her movement, clapping with her as a show of solidarity. Gaim looked around. That's creepy as fuck. He then focused on Susie. So, drinks flowing again? Susie smiled. Of course. She walked over and kissed his cheek. You always fix me up, she said with a wink. Gaim groaned. We're going to have to build those outer doors. Susie took a long breath. People have a hard enough time with the doors as is. It's nice outside, like always. I don't want the doors we have. Any breach in the shielding, like those doors, fries your electronics. She smiled. And you fix those electronics, for food and drink. That's the deal. He shut his eyes for a moment and rubbed his eyebrow. Parts are few and far between here. I've had to fabricate numerous diodes just to keep your lights on. It would be better for everyone here if we could be more responsible with our resources. He opened his eyes and stared at her. She stared right back, unmoving. You just being lazy. We don't have the parts. I spend more on scrap to repurpose for you than I would on the food and drinks. She shrugged. Then, you can just buy your own food and drinks. Think about that? And you can pay me to fix things when they burn up. He took a step and pointed toward the walls. And you can pay the guys around town to repair your building when it erupts into blue flames when I stop upgrading the weak wiring for you. Alexandra looked over at Susie, and then over at Jaime. And a set of doors would fix that? He met her gaze and nodded. Alexandra shrugged. You got room outside, Susie. We could put tables out there if people want to eat outside. If the doors fix the problem, they fix the problem. Susie groaned, staring at Jaime. Okay, put me down for a set of hideous doors. Gaim relaxed, releasing a sigh. Thank you. Susie waved him off. Drink to your heart's content. He walked over to the bar with a wave. Only need the one. I've got a backlog to get done. Alexandra waited for him to pour his drink and exit sideways out through the door before speaking up again. So, ladies, what do you think about what we were discussing? Elise shifted on her stool. I can get Jacobs and Kurt on board. They like Bubba already. Alexandra nodded. I'll make sure they are outfitted. The rest of the dock hands will be with them. Susie looked around the table. Okay, so we're going to have some police then. Little less Wild West. Alexandra nodded. Yes, but not like those soldiers. We're in this together, one people. She looked over at the mothers. All of us. Darkness rose up taller. And you can make more of the picks? Alexandra bobbed her head. Yes, those are easy. Hard part will be the poisons. I've got a few growing back at the cabin that will be effective on people. The one that you have from the mud bugs you'll have to be careful with. I saw what that'll do to your people. She looked around at the women. We'll need spill-proof cases to keep the picks in. Design 'em up? One of the human women behind Elise raised a hand up. I moonlight over in the presses. I can get some plastic ones made up, maybe test them with some dye, make sure they don't leak, and then get them out? Alexandra pointed at her. I like that. Wish we had Dahlia. I want juices that paralyze rather than kill. Non-lethal, you know? Elise shifted in her dress, smiling as it shimmered before looking up. If anyone gets too rowdy, like bad, we will need lethal options. The fear helps keep folks in line. Alexandra nodded. Let's see what we get in the works, and go from there. She looked around. We're going to need identification, something that lets everyone know who works for who around here. Darkness watched her. Like your clothing? Weaves? Yes, authoritative colors. We need something that shows we're a team, maybe a sash or something. Susie walked a step around the table. Red's always been used by awful people in the past. Blue? Alexandra looked at the mothers. Can you make blue sashes? Come up with a symbol? Darkness pivoted her eyes around at her sisters as she tapped. We have ideas, Elise groaned. Why Bubba, though? Why not do a recount, make you mayor? Darkness rose taller. I like that idea. Males should not be in power. They are too stupid. Your male proves this already. Alexandra looked around at the tall women and then at Elise. We're the opposite of them. Our males are the warriors, the strong ones. It's how their brains are wired, just as you ladies are wired. They think they should be in charge, so we will let them think they are. We will keep you ladies in reserve in case any act up and try upturning things. We will run things from here, like puppeteers. The tall women looked around at each other. Darkness spoke up. What was that word? Alexandra laughed. Puppets? Darkness nodded. Elise chuckled. They're going to like this. Wow, marionettes? Alexandra pulled over a slate and typed in the word. The mothers watched as the toys moved on the screen, pulled, controlled by strings. The room filled with chitters.